a relationship among their people, among their lineage. This is from 2008, called Counting the Founders, the matrilineal genetic ancestry of the Jewish diaspora. Hence, the lack of these particular chromosomes among North African Jews and the low frequency of these lineages, what they're doing here is they're actually identifying specific markers that different populations have that make them more susceptible to different kinds of diseases and things. And so they're putting these things together to help people so that they know what to expect based on their lineage. And the low frequency of these lineages renders the possibility of significant admixture between the local Arab and Berber populations with Jews unlikely, consistent with the social restrictions imposed by religious restrictions of the Jews. In other words, the point here is this, and that is that Jews are not allowed to marry outside of their lineage. And because of that, even when they're amongst another host population, they don't intermarry with them very much, and that is proven out to be the case genetically. Here's another example of this from 2000. This is Jewish and Middle East non-Jewish populations. Despite their high degree of geographic dispersion, Jewish populations from Europe, North Africa, and the Near East were less diverged genetically from each other than any other group of populations in this study. Meaning the Jewish populations, again, don't intermarry. This is from a 2002 article in American Journal of Human Genetics. This is called Founding Mothers of Jewish Communities. Geographically separated Jewish groups were independently founded by very few female ancestors. The greatly reduced mitochondrial DNA diversity that is found in the Jewish populations is, in comparison with the host populations, indicates a simple explanation: that each of the different Jewish communities is composed of descendants of a small group of maternal founders. After the establishment of these communities, inward gene flow from the host populations must have been very limited. Not much gene flow coming from the host populations, at least if it did happen, it was very limited according to the genetic findings of this article. It goes on to say, indeed, every Jewish population has a lower mitochondrial DNA diversity than any non-Jewish population. It seems that the Jews are more apt to actually adhere and uphold their covenants to marry within their lineage than other populations. This is BMC Genomics, April of 2008. The differences in mitochondrial DNA haplogroup distribution among 3 Jewish populations alter the susceptibility to the T2DM complications. Results, a total of 1,179 patients comprised of 3 Jewish populations, the Ashkenazi Jews and the non-Ashkenazi European Jews and North African Jews, were genotyped and assigned to different mitochondrial DNA haplogroups. Almost 90% of the subjects belonged to one of the 12 most prevalent mitochondrial DNA haplogroups in Ashkenazi Jews. What are the 12 most prevalent mitochondrial DNA haplogroups in Ashkenazi Jews? X is one of the 12 most prevalent haplogroups. So now we have haplogroup X in actual Jewish populations, not just among the Druze who are non-Jewish, but closely genetically related to the Druze or to the Jews. We have it now in a Jewish population. This is a 2008 article in PLS 1, Counting the Founders. The maternal founding event in Libyan Jews is evident, as 39.8% of their mitochondrial DNAs could be related to one woman carrying the X2 lineage supported by an earlier observation, where 10 out of 20 Libyan Jews were found to have this haplotype, the X2 lineage in Libyan Jews. Half of them when they were studied have this haplogroup. Libyan and Tunisian Jewish communities shared among them X2 lineage as the most frequent as well. In fact, one X2 Moroccan Jewish primitive founding lineage was analyzed using 2 complete and mitochondrial DNA sequences. So now what we have here is we have Libyan Jews and Tunisian Jews and Moroccan Jews and Ashkenazi Jews all having haplogroup X DNA. But this one is one that I found very, very exciting. This is in the American Journal of Human Genetics, 2002 article. Remember in the Book of Mormon, Lehi is preaching to the people of Jerusalem at 600 years before Christ. 14 years later, Jerusalem was destroyed and captives were taken by King Nebuchadnezzar and the Babylonian Empire. Now these captives, where were they taken? They were taken back to Babylon. Iraqi Jews are Jews who were born or whose parents or grandparents were born in Iraq. Jewish tradition places the origin of this community in the exile following the destruction of the first temple in 586 BC. These are thought to be those people who were taken captive out of Jerusalem right after Lehi left. These would have been the people who Lehi was literally preaching to. And we know that ancient Babylon is today modern Iraq. So the people that have this lineage and came out of Jerusalem. Now, if they're Jews, they're not directly related to Lehi and his group, because the Jews go back to Judah and Lehi's group goes back to Joseph, who was brothers with Judah. But if you go one more generation back, they all go back to Israel. And so they are definitely related groups here. Would you like to know what kind of DNA Iraqi Jews have? According to this same article, they have the columns. You can see haplogroup X. Ashkenazi Jews have haplogroup X. The Iraqi Jews have haplogroup X DNA. The very captives who were taken from Israel, from Jerusalem at 586 BC, do in fact have haplogroup X DNA. Also the Libyan and the Moroccan Jews have haplogroup X. So we have haplogroup X amongst Jewish populations who are there at the same time when Lehi left Jerusalem. And we know that their lineages also share this haplogroup X. In American Journal of Physical Anthropology, genetically, it appears that there could be evidence for a migration coming up from the Mississippi River into the interior of the United States. In this article called Rapid Deployment of the 5 Founding Amerind Mitochondrial DNA Haplogroups via Coastal and Riverine Colonization, it talks about the interior of America may have been settled up the Mississippi River. Now, if you take a look, though, at the genetic groups, the 5 founding haplogroups that are found surrounding these areas, if you take a look at how much change there is between these two groups, from the mouth of the Mississippi River up into the interior of America, you see there's only one group that really significantly changes, and that is haplogroup X. Haplogroup X is much stronger up in this area. And so there is a probability of haplogroup X colonization spreading up the Mississippi River, from the mouth up into the heartland area. This is from American Antiquity 2007. And again, going back to genetic evidence in favor of the Book of Mormon, or that may support the Book of Mormon's claims. And what it talks about in this particular article about migration and social structure among the Hopewell, evidence from ancient DNA, is that if you take a look at this map, you have those 4 centers, which we talked about before. In this heartland model, the upper right hand, which is the Ohio River Valley, is an area that I would personally consider to be a possibility to be the land bountiful. The area around the Mississippi River Valley to the left of that, and then down a little bit to the south, which is basically around the area of Nauvoo and Illinois and that area, if it is the case that when the Lord named Zarahemla across the river from Nauvoo, if that actually in fact was Zarahemla, there's a lot of evidence to support this, because that is actually one of the archaeologically strongest areas. More of the archaeological evidence is showing up there in this, as you can see in this map. If that was Zarahemla and the Ohio River Valley was in fact bountiful, then the statement that this talks about in the DNA article makes a lot of sense. The results of this analysis demonstrate that gene flow did accompany the cultural exchange between middle woodland communities in the Ohio and Illinois valleys, meaning that the areas that would be considered bountiful in Zarahemla were having a significant amount of intermarrying, interaction between those two populations, those two civilizations, because they're probably the same civilization, and so they were intermarrying within, again, their lineage. That would make a lot of sense if the Book of Mormon lands were in fact